60 minutes. That's all it took for Benjamin Franklin to redesign his entire day, and by extension, redesign history. Not through genius, not through wealth, through architecture, the deliberate, ruthless architecture of a single hour. What neuroscience has since confirmed, and what the world's highest performers have quietly practiced for centuries, is that transformation doesn't require a revolution in your circumstances. It requires a revolution in your time, and that revolution fits inside 60 minutes. Most people will never believe that. They're waiting for the seismic shift, the career breakthrough, the financial windfall, the moment life finally cooperates. But here's what the data tells us. The average American spends over 4 hours daily consuming digital media, scrolling, streaming, reacting. 4 hours of absorption. 0 hours of construction. And the gap between those two behaviors is precisely the gap between the life they have and the life they want. This isn't a motivational video. This is a strategic blueprint. And if you follow it with the precision it deserves, you won't recognize yourself 12 months from now. Every elite performer, from Olympic athletes to Fortune 500 architects, shares one behavioral signature. They treat the opening hour of the day not as a warm-up, but as the main event. Neuroscientists call it the theta to alpha transition, the window between sleep and full wakefulness, when the prefrontal cortex is primed for deep encoding. In simple terms, your brain is most malleable, most receptive, and most powerful in the first 60 minutes after waking. And almost universally, we hand it to our phones. The moment you check a notification before you've set your own mental agenda, you've surrendered your most valuable cognitive real estate to someone else's priorities. A marketing algorithm, someone else's emergency, the curated highlight reel of a stranger's life. You've started the day in response mode, and response mode is the enemy of construction. The solution isn't complicated, but it is demanding. It requires you to reclaim that window with surgical intentionality. Before the digital world gets access to your attention, you get access to your future. 10 minutes of serious reading. 5 minutes of journaling, not gratitude lists for their own sake, but strategic reflection. What must I build today? What pattern must I break? What does the version of me I'm becoming actually do differently? Then movement, then silence. Then the day begins, but now you're not reacting to it. You're leading it. The compounding effect of this single shift is documented and staggering. Research from the European Journal of Social Psychology found that behavioral identity shifts, the kind that actually stick, require consistent environmental cueing over an average of 66 days. 1 hour structured the same way for 66 days, and you don't just have a habit, you have a new operating system. But reclaiming the hour is only half the equation. The other half is defending it, and this is where most people fail. In an economy engineered for your attention, your protected hour is a target. Every platform, every colleague, every well-meaning interruption is pulling on that 60 minutes. And unlike money, which can be earned back, time operates on a one-way ledger. There is no recovery. There is no refund. What is spent is spent. This is why high performers treat their growth hour the way a surgeon treats a scheduled procedure, non-negotiable, pre-announced, and structurally protected. They communicate boundaries not as preferences, but as professional commitments. They don't leave the hour open to negotiation because they understand that the people who don't protect their time will always, without malice, consume the time of those who don't. Schedule it in writing the night before. Give it a name. Assign it a location. Remove the friction between you and the work and add friction between you and the distractions. Put the phone in another room. Close the tabs. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't have a discipline problem. You have an environment design problem. Fix the environment and the discipline follows. Now, direction. Action without strategic direction is one of the most expensive mistakes in the human experience. It feels productive. It generates momentum. It creates the satisfying sensation of effort. But effort aimed at the wrong target is worse than stillness because it costs you energy, time, and, most dangerously, the belief that you're progressing when you aren't. Before your hour begins each morning, invest 3 minutes in what strategists call a vector check. A vector has both speed and direction, and most people optimize only for speed. Write down specifically what you are building and why it matters to you at a level deeper than surface ambition. Not, I want to make more money, but I am developing the financial infrastructure that removes economic anxiety from my family's future. That specificity activates the reticular activating system, the brain's relevance filter, which begins unconsciously surfacing opportunities, patterns, and connections aligned with your stated target. Without that clarity, your hour is sophisticated busyness. With it, your hour is architecture. And architecture requires materials. If you're watching Strategic World Insights for the first time, subscribe now, because this channel exists precisely for the person who refuses to let their potential stay theoretical. The materials of a transformed life are knowledge, skill, and applied judgment. And all three are acquired through learning, not passive absorption, but deliberate, structured, intellectual input. The compound math here is not motivational hyperbole. It is arithmetic. One focused hour of skill-specific learning per day equals roughly 365 hours annually. That is 9.5 full 40-hour work weeks invested in a single domain. By any professional standard, that is the difference between a novice and a practitioner. But the method matters as much as the volume. Passive reading without application has a retention rate of approximately 10% within 1 week, according to cognitive science research. Active reading, pausing to summarize, question, and connect, raises that figure to 60% or higher. So when your learning hour begins, bring a pen, bring friction. Don't consume the material. Interrogate it. Ask what it challenges in your existing framework and what it enables that you couldn't do before. The skill compounds. The knowledge accumulates. And over time, the distance between you and the median performer in your field grows, not because you're more talented, but because you're more deliberate. Apply what you learn within 24 hours, even imperfectly, even briefly, because cognition research confirms that the act of application, of attempting to use new knowledge, creates neural pathways that pure study cannot. Professionals aren't produced by information. They're produced by the repeated collision between information and reality, refined over time. Which brings us to the most undervalued habit in the high-performance toolkit, structured reflection. The aviation industry offers an instructive model. Commercial aircraft are off their intended flight path approximately 90% of their flight time. They arrive on schedule because the system continuously measures deviation and corrects it in real time. Your life operates on the same principle, but most people have no measurement system. They know what they're doing. They rarely know how effectively they're doing it, or whether the effort is actually translating into meaningful progress. At the end of each focused hour, take 5 minutes to evaluate it. Not emotionally, strategically. What did you accomplish? Where did your focus fracture? What would a 10% more effective version of that hour have looked like? Write the answer down. Then use it to design tomorrow's hour. This is the feedback loop that separates genuine growth from repeated effort. It is the difference between a year of experience and a year of compounding experience, and those two things produce entirely different outcomes. Now consider health, because no performance framework is complete without it, and most performance conversations underweight it dangerously. The relationship between physical conditioning and cognitive output is not correlational. It is causal. A 2020 study from the British Journal of Sports Medicine found that even moderate cardiovascular exercise, 30 to 60 minutes, improves executive function, working memory, and creative problem solving for up to 4 hours post-exercise. You are not working out to look better. You are working out to think better, decide better, and execute better. Your body is not separate from your strategy. It is the hardware your strategy runs on. Neglect it gradually, and the degradation is invisible until it's undeniable. Energy declines. Decision quality erodes. The cognitive edge that separates you from average performers narrows and disappears. And no amount of ambition compensates for a system running on depleted resources. 1 hour. Walk, lift, stretch, swim, move. It doesn't require a performance facility. It requires the understanding that physical investment is strategic investment, and that the hour you give your body returns itself to you multiplied in every other domain. Apply that same single-hour logic to wealth creation, and the arithmetic becomes genuinely transformative. 1 focused hour per day directed at building something you own, a skill, a product, a service, a platform, computes to 260 hours annually outside of your primary income. That is not a hobby. That is a serious business incubation program conducted on your own schedule, at zero overhead, with no permission required from anyone. The critical distinction is ownership versus exchange. A salary is an exchange, your time for their money, governed by their terms, subject to their decisions. An asset is something that generates value independent of your hourly presence. That quiet evening hour, consistently applied to building something you own, is the seed capital of financial independence. It doesn't mature in 90 days, but in 3 to 5 years of consistent cultivation, it can fundamentally alter your financial architecture. And none of the performance, the wealth, the health, the achievement, sustains without the relational infrastructure that holds it all together. Because at the end of a well-constructed life, the currency that matters most isn't in any account. It's in the quality of your connections. Give 1 hour of genuine, undivided attention each week to the relationships that matter most. Not proximity, presence, no devices, no partial attention. The psychological concept of attunement, the feeling of being truly seen and heard by another person, is one of the most powerful drivers of human well-being and loyalty. It cannot be manufactured. It cannot be purchased. It can only be given, and it takes time and nothing but time. The people who invest here build networks of loyalty that carry them through every professional and personal storm. The people who neglect it accumulate achievements that feel hollow in the quiet moments. Here, then, is the complete architecture: a protected morning hour to build your mind and set your direction, an hour of structured learning to stack your skills, an hour of physical investment to sharpen your instrument, an hour of financial construction to build what you own, a reflection practice to close every loop, and the relational investment that gives it all meaning. 6 categories, 1 hour each, not all in the same day. Life is not a spreadsheet, but stacked deliberately across a week, this structure transforms the ordinary passage of time into intentional construction. The philosopher Seneca wrote 2,000 years ago, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it." He wasn't lamenting mortality. He was diagnosing a behavioral pattern that is, if anything, more acute today than it was in ancient Rome. You have time. The question is never whether you have enough of it. The question is always what kind of person you are choosing to build inside of it. Start tonight, not with a grand renovation, with 1 hour, protected, directed, deliberate, because the gap between the life you're living and the life you're capable of is not measured in years. It's measured in hours, specifically in what you choose to do with the ones that are already yours.